The stars shimmered in the vast blackness of space, untouched by time. And then, a streak of fire appeared, cutting through the silence like a blade. A monstrous ship, larger than anything humanity had ever imagined, descended toward Earth. Its dark, gleaming surface reflected the light of distant stars, a harbinger of a coming storm. The alien forces aboard the ship believed this was an easy conquest, a quick and simple victory. They had been to many worlds, their strength unmatched. No species had ever been able to stand against them. The humans, they believed, would be no different. But as they neared the planet's atmosphere, something happened. The ship shuddered. The crew inside paused, glancing nervously at each other. A crackling voice echoed over the ship's intercom, a voice that belonged to the commander of the invasion force. "Prepare for landing," the commander ordered, confident in their victory. But his tone faltered as the systems displayed an unexpected spike in energy. "What is this?" he muttered under his breath. The reading was strange, different from anything they had encountered in their previous conquests. Something about Earth was not as it seemed. Still, they pushed forward, dismissing the warning as an anomaly. The ship's engines roared to life, and the ground below began to tremble as the vessel descended. As the ship's massive form settled just above the ground, the crew prepared for their first strike. They were wrong to think humanity would be easy prey. Moments before the first foot touched Earth's surface, the skies darkened. A strange, intense energy burst from the ground beneath the ship, a pulse that radiated outward. The alien sensors went haywire, registering an overwhelming surge of power. Their systems, normally invincible, flickered and sputtered. The ship's commander's eyes widened as his screen flashed with red warnings. "What is this? We've never encountered." The ground beneath the ship rippled as if the planet itself was fighting back. Before the aliens could react, a loud, thunderous sound filled the air, followed by a shockwave that rocked the ship. It wasn't just a physical blow. It was as if the very fabric of reality had shifted, like a giant unseen hand had gripped them and slammed them into the ground. The alien force had expected a world of primitive creatures, easily dominated. But Earth was different. Far different. The aliens' weapons were designed to crush civilizations without effort. But as they emerged from their craft, they found themselves facing something they had never anticipated. It was a weapon that wasn't physical at all, a weapon of willpower, of ingenuity, of sheer human spirit. They had landed in the heart of a vast and powerful force, humanity. And humans were not going to back down. The first wave of humans was unremarkable to the invaders. Soldiers, ordinary citizens, civilians, people who didn't look like warriors. But as they advanced, a quiet confidence filled their ranks. They weren't scared. They knew something the aliens didn't: humans never gave up, no matter the odds. They didn't need alien technology to fight. They didn't need alien weapons. What they had was something far more terrifying, a desire to protect, to survive, and an unyielding determination that no alien force could ever truly understand. As the invaders tried to make sense of the strange energy they were encountering, they heard something they had never imagined, a sound of humanity's collective defiance. It was the rumble of thousands of voices, of machines being fueled by the spirit of people who had endured and thrived against everything life had thrown at them. The first alien commander to step foot on Earth paused as he heard it, a sound of resilience, of unity. A sound that said, "We will fight you." And then, before the alien forces could regroup, the humans struck, with precision, with heart, and with the fury of a species that had never been truly tested. The invaders, who had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, now found themselves facing the unexpected, humanity's fierce, unrelenting will. They weren't just fighting a planet of mere survivors. They were fighting a species that would stop at nothing to protect what it held dear. The ground trembled with the force of the alien ship's massive bulk. The invaders, still stunned by the energy pulse that had struck them, stumbled as they tried to regain their bearings. They had expected to land on a planet of primitive creatures, easily subdued. What they didn't realize was that the very essence of Earth, its people, its spirit, was about to defy everything they knew. The first few moments were chaotic. The aliens regrouped, their weapons quickly powering up. They raised their advanced energy rifles, expecting to cut down anything that moved. But as they did, they were met with an unexpected sight: humanity was not scattering in fear. Instead, people stood their ground, eyes focused, hearts pounding with purpose. A group of soldiers, armed with nothing more than rifles and makeshift armor, advanced through the thick fog of smoke. They moved with precision, their steps calculated and measured. They weren't afraid. They had been trained for this moment. But what made their advance truly shocking wasn't just their training. It was their unwavering determination, something no invader had ever encountered. "Fire at will," one soldier shouted, and without hesitation, the humans opened fire. The alien energy shields, which had once blocked attacks from entire fleets, flickered under the pressure of human firepower. The invaders recoiled, taken aback by the power of these primitive weapons. The energy shields, which had been designed to withstand blasts from the most advanced weaponry, were failing against human ingenuity. The aliens began to fall back, but the humans didn't relent. More soldiers appeared, each one bringing their own form of defense. Some wielded basic firearms, others improvised with vehicles, using the tools they had at hand. But the true force behind their resistance was the one thing no alien species had accounted for: unity. People from all walks of life, regardless of their age, their background, their race, joined together with one goal in mind: to protect their home. Amid the confusion, a small group of civilians, caught in the chaos, took action. A man in his 60s, who had never seen combat before, grabbed a discarded military rifle and sprinted toward the front lines. He wasn't a soldier. He was a father, a husband, and a member of a community that would never allow its future to be stolen by invaders. "Stand firm," he called to others as he ran. "We fight for our children." His voice, once filled with doubt, now rang with authority. It wasn't just a rallying cry, it was a reminder that humanity had something the invaders could never understand. They had a connection to each other, a shared history, and a will to fight for their survival. The man's words rippled through the crowd, empowering those who had been hiding in fear. Families, workers, teachers, and leaders all surged forward, driven by the same purpose. The aliens, still reeling from the unexpected resistance, began to realize something crucial. These humans were not just trying to defend their world. They were fighting to keep everything they had ever known from being ripped away. It was a fight for life itself. As the battle continued, the alien commanders convened in their ship, watching the human resistance unfold. Their superior technology should have been enough to crush the humans in minutes. Yet here they were, struggling to suppress a force they hadn't even expected to encounter. "We've underestimated them," one of the commanders said, his voice laced with frustration. "These humans are not like any species we've encountered before." A second commander gritted his teeth. "Their tactics are primitive, their weapons outdated. We've seen such resistance before and crushed it easily." The first commander nodded, but his eyes were clouded with doubt. "No, it's more than that. There's something different about them. They don't fight like anyone else." The aliens' focus turned back to the battlefield, and they could see it now: humanity was not just surviving, they were thriving under pressure. They were using everything at their disposal to fight back: old and new technologies, strategic thinking, and above all, their unwavering resolve. The aliens realized they were facing something they could not predict. One alien officer, growing desperate, activated the ship's communication system. "Prepare the orbital strikes," he ordered. "If they want to fight, let them face the full force of our might." But as the aliens prepared to bombard Earth from space, something happened that no one could have predicted. A single human, a scientist working within a hidden lab, had discovered something. It wasn't a weapon, not a bomb or missile, but a force far more powerful, a countermeasure to the aliens' technology. With one press of a button, a pulse of energy shot up from Earth's surface, a pulse that disabled the alien ship's weapons systems. The invaders could no longer rely on their technology to protect them. In that instant, they were on the same playing field as the humans, vulnerable, exposed, and facing a force they had never experienced. The aliens' confidence began to waver. They had underestimated humanity, thinking it would be easy to conquer a species so young, so unprepared. But the truth was dawning on them: humans were far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Back on the ground, the humans pressed forward. No one knew how long they could hold out, but one thing was certain: they weren't going down without a fight. And the galaxy was about to learn the hard truth: humanity wasn't a species to be conquered. They were a species to be feared. The air was thick with tension as the first full day of battle came to an end. The alien invaders, confident in their superiority, were now scrambling to reassess the situation. They had believed Earth's resistance would collapse within hours, but instead, they were facing a relentless human force that had not only endured their initial strike but had turned the tide. They had expected to see fear, confusion, and submission. What they saw instead was unwavering determination, intelligence, and unity. Humanity, from the highest levels of government to the most ordinary citizens, was fighting with a spirit that no one, not even the aliens, had anticipated. The world's nations, once divided by politics, had set aside their differences and worked together with a single purpose: to defend Earth at all costs. This unified front was the first weapon the aliens had failed to consider. The invaders had expected each nation to cower in fear, but humans had a strange ability to adapt to adversity. Their resilience was not just a reaction, it was deeply ingrained in their nature. From their earliest days, humans had faced challenges that would have wiped out any other species. Droughts, famines, plagues, wars, yet each time, they adapted, learned, and rebuilt. What the aliens failed to understand was that the same adaptability that had allowed humans to survive centuries of hardship was now their greatest weapon. As the battle progressed, the aliens began to notice something else: a peculiar, almost intangible force that seemed to permeate the very air of Earth. It was not just the power of humanity's will, but the incredible depth of human ingenuity. Humans had created technologies that were thought to be impossible, forged in the fires of necessity, desperation, and innovation. They had built weapons and tools using limited resources, and somehow, they had found a way to turn their most primitive technologies into potent weapons. In a small town somewhere in the middle of a conflict zone, a group of scientists and engineers had been working on a strange new device, something no one had dared to try before. It wasn't a weapon, at least not in the traditional sense. It was a system that could harness the very vibrations of the planet itself and use them as a source of energy. The device was rudimentary, but it was enough to disrupt the invaders' technology. When it was activated, it sent a massive shockwave of energy through the aliens' advanced communication network, temporarily disabling their command centers. "Impossible," muttered an alien commander as he watched his own systems begin to falter. The screen in front of him flickered, showing the devastation humanity had caused with nothing more than basic technology and a fierce will to survive. He couldn't believe it. The humans weren't relying on the most sophisticated weaponry. They were relying on their creativity. And that creativity was something the invaders couldn't counter. They had expected a battle of firepower, but what they got instead was a war of ideas, of improvisation, and of the raw power that came with a species that refused to give up. Meanwhile, the alien forces were beginning to question everything they thought they knew about warfare. Their weapons, which had once been unstoppable, were now ineffective. The human strategies, while chaotic, were somehow working. The ships they had sent to orbit Earth to launch a final strike now found themselves outmaneuvered by human ingenuity. Simple tactics, such as using the environment to their advantage, were being employed with a level of resourcefulness that stunned the aliens. It was clear that the humans, despite their seeming disadvantage, were proving themselves a far more difficult enemy than anticipated. Among the chaos, a young soldier, barely out of his teens, found himself at the center of a critical mission. The alien forces had begun to target a major human stronghold, hoping to crush the resistance in one fell swoop. The soldier, armed with nothing more than a standard rifle and his own determination, was tasked with holding the line. He had no formal training for such a responsibility, but what he had was the knowledge that his family, his friends, and his home were all counting on him. As he moved through the rubble-strewn streets, his mind raced. He wasn't a trained soldier. He was just a kid who had grown up learning about history, about humanity's past struggles. But something inside him told him to keep going. It was the same thing that had driven every human to keep fighting, no matter how impossible the odds. He wasn't just defending his city, he was defending the future of every human being on Earth. As the alien forces closed in, the young soldier found himself at the front of an ambush. His heart pounded in his chest, but his hands were steady as he opened fire. The human resistance was everywhere now, civilians, scientists, and soldiers working together to keep the invaders at bay. The aliens had thought they were fighting an easy war. But now, with every passing minute, the humans proved that they were the true warriors of the galaxy. Back in the alien command center, the realization began to set in. They were not dealing with a primitive race. They were dealing with a species that had been forged in the fires of survival, a species that could not only endure hardship but rise above it. The human spirit was something the aliens could never fully understand or replicate. It was something they feared, and it was something they could never defeat. The tide of battle had shifted, and the aliens knew it. Humans were not only fighting to survive, they were fighting for something greater, the chance to shape their own future. And in the end, it was that unyielding desire, that refusal to back down, that made humanity the most terrifying warrior species the galaxy had ever encountered. The alien forces, once confident in their near invincibility, were beginning to unravel. Their advanced weaponry, their massive fleets, and their intimidating presence on Earth were all being undermined by one thing they hadn't accounted for: humanity's refusal to give up, even when faced with the impossible. The invaders had come expecting a quick and decisive victory. What they got instead was an unrelenting fight, a fight not just for survival but for something much deeper, the preservation of everything humanity held dear. The shockwave pulse that had disabled their communication systems was only the beginning. The more the aliens tried to regain control, the more they discovered just how deeply humanity had tapped into its own hidden potential. It wasn't just military forces that were battling them anymore, it was the entirety of Earth, united as one. The very soil beneath their feet seemed to resist their every movement, as though the planet itself was fighting back. But it wasn't just human resolve that was shifting the tide. Deep within one of the most secretive laboratories, a group of scientists had been working on something that would prove to be the unexpected weapon, one that no alien, not even their most advanced minds, could have predicted. Dr. Asha, a leading physicist, and her team had spent years studying the anomalies in Earth's magnetic fields, long before the invasion began. They had suspected that these anomalies could be harnessed, but no one had ever taken the idea seriously. That was, until the invasion. As the alien ships began their attacks, Dr. Asha and her team had put their theories to the test. They began to develop a device, a machine capable of amplifying and redirecting Earth's magnetic energy in such a way that it could interfere with alien technology. The weapon wasn't one of mass destruction. It wasn't a bomb or a missile. It was something simpler, something more subtle, but in the right hands, it could disrupt the invaders' entire technological advantage. Dr. Asha had always believed that human innovation wasn't about making the most advanced machines. It was about understanding the world around them and using whatever resources were available to make a difference. And now, in this moment of crisis, her belief had become humanity's greatest asset. The weapon was ready. With a final push of a button, Dr. Asha activated the device, sending a pulse of energy that rippled across Earth's magnetic fields. The pulse traveled upwards, reaching the alien ships in orbit and disrupting their internal systems. The impact was instantaneous. The alien technology, once thought to be flawless, began to short-circuit. Their advanced weaponry flickered out. Their shields faltered. The massive ships that had once seemed so indomitable now appeared vulnerable and powerless. From the ground below, humanity watched in awe. The alien fleet, previously hovering above Earth with a sense of triumph, now appeared helpless. One by one, the invaders' ships began to fall from the sky, their once impenetrable systems now nothing more than scrap. The pulse had leveled the playing field. But even as the humans celebrated this first victory, the alien commanders were frantically trying to regroup. Their ships, though damaged, were still functional. The war was not over, and they knew it. The humans had just unveiled a weapon that defied logic, one that had turned their technological superiority into a liability. And that realization brought with it an even greater fear. The alien forces, in their desperation, tried to fight back using their remaining technology. They fired their remaining weapons, but without their advanced systems fully operational, their strikes were weak and ineffective. Human soldiers on the ground, who had once been outmatched by the invaders' technology, now found themselves in a far more even fight. The tide of the battle had shifted in their favor. Yet, despite the advances humanity had made, the alien forces weren't ready to give up just yet. Their commanders, though frustrated and wary of the unexpected turn of events, had one final weapon in their arsenal, a massive fleet of drones, unmanned and capable of overwhelming the human resistance. It was a desperate last-ditch effort to regain the upper hand. But humanity had already proven their ingenuity once again. As the drones descended from the skies, they were met by a countermeasure that no one had expected. A human hacker, a young woman from a small town, had infiltrated the aliens' encrypted networks. Her knowledge of their systems was rudimentary at first, but as the battle raged on, she had learned to manipulate their drone technology. By the time the fleet of drones reached Earth, she had already activated a signal that would cause the drones to malfunction, redirecting them back toward their own ships. The alien fleet, which had once seemed all-powerful, was now turning on itself. The drones, instead of attacking humanity, began to destroy the alien command ships, causing chaos and confusion within their ranks. It was a sight that none of the invaders had ever imagined, their own machines turning against them. The once proud alien force was now crumbling, overwhelmed by the resourcefulness and creativity of the human race. Every time the aliens thought they had the upper hand, humanity had proven them wrong, using the most unexpected tools to turn the tide of battle. The aliens had underestimated Earth. They had underestimated humanity. And now, with their fleets disabled, their weapons useless, and their plans falling apart, they had no choice but to recognize the truth: the humans were not a species to be underestimated. They were, in fact, the galaxy's most terrifying warriors, capable of turning even the most ordinary of tools into deadly weapons and using their most unexpected strengths to fight back against a force far more powerful than themselves. And the aliens, for the first time, began to understand why they had underestimated the humans. It wasn't just their technology. It wasn't just their weapons. It was something deeper. It was their spirit. The human race, in all its chaos and imperfection, had proven that when it came to survival, there was nothing more terrifying in the galaxy than a determined human being. The moment the alien drones began to turn on their creators, the situation shifted dramatically. What had seemed like a well-calculated invasion was rapidly devolving into chaos. The invaders, once confident in their superior technology in overwhelming numbers, were now on the defensive, caught off guard by the resourcefulness of a species they had never taken seriously. On Earth, the exhilaration was palpable. For the first time, the humans had caught a glimpse of victory. They had not only survived the initial assault but had struck back with a cunning that seemed almost preordained. In every city, from the bustling metropolises to the rural heartlands, people stood on rooftops, gazing up at the sky in disbelief. They had witnessed the fall of the invaders' ships, the crumbling of their defenses, and the unraveling of a military power that had once been thought unstoppable. But as the first wave of jubilation passed, something else began to settle in, a deep, quiet fear. The invaders may have been retreating for now, but they were not defeated. The humans had fought back with ingenuity, but the battle was far from over. And in the midst of the victory, whispers of the consequences began to circulate. The galaxy's most fearsome warrior race had just been humiliated by a planet they had deemed insignificant. But that humiliation wasn't going to stay confined to Earth. Other alien species, observing the chaos unfold, were beginning to take notice. The galaxy's greatest powers, once confident in their own security, now saw humanity in a new light. The ripples of Earth's resistance spread outward, each one sending waves of fear to the farthest reaches of space. The alien race that had first attempted to invade Earth wasn't the only one watching. Other factions, far more advanced and ruthless, began to consider the implications of what had just happened. Earth, once a forgotten backwater in the galaxy's grand scheme, had become the new center of attention. The victory over one alien force was enough to send a message that humanity was capable of more than anyone had imagined. But the message wasn't one of hope, as humanity had hoped. It was one of fear. For while the invaders had been forced to retreat, it was clear that the larger galactic community was now aware of the human species' unexpected power. And those who had once disregarded Earth as an insignificant world now saw it as a potential threat, one that could not be ignored. Back on Earth, world leaders convened in secret, aware that the victory over the alien invaders had only set the stage for a far larger, more dangerous conflict. They knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had shown it could fight, and now, the galaxy's other civilizations would be watching and waiting, unsure whether Earth's survival was a fluke or the beginning of something much more serious. Among the alien ranks, leaders from distant star systems began to debate their options. They had long believed that Earth was a weak, primitive world, but what they had witnessed during the invasion had changed their perception. The humans had used cleverness, determination, and resourcefulness to thwart their greatest weapons. And if humanity had the potential to learn so quickly, to adapt and to fight so fiercely, then what else could they do? The fear spread, but it wasn't just the humans who were afraid. It was the galaxy itself. The first signs of this fear came when a high-ranking official from a neighboring system contacted the alien invaders' fleet commander. The tone of the message was cold, calculated, and filled with concern. "You've failed," the message began. "And you've made a grave mistake by underestimating the humans. Their resistance is unlike anything we've seen. If we do not respond swiftly, Earth will become a target that all will fear." The alien commander, still shaken by the devastating turn of events, clenched his fists. His ships had been defeated, and the humans had turned what was supposed to be a quick and painless invasion into a nightmare. He had witnessed firsthand how the human spirit could tear apart the most advanced weaponry and systems with nothing more than sheer willpower and clever innovation. "The humans, they fight differently," he muttered to himself. "They will not be like the others. We cannot simply crush them with brute force. They have the heart of warriors." The fear the aliens had instilled in the galaxy was now turning back on them. They had believed that they were the dominant force in the universe, but the human race had made it clear that they were more than just an insignificant species. They were a force to be reckoned with, a force that would not be easily subdued. The human spirit, as powerful as it was unpredictable, had already begun to spread throughout the galaxy. And it wasn't just the defeated alien fleet that feared humanity. The other races, who had once regarded Earth as nothing more than a footnote in the cosmic ledger, began to reconsider their view of the human species. At the farthest edges of known space, another alien empire, one that had conquered countless worlds, took a moment to reassess its own place in the galaxy. They had never imagined that a species like humanity could pose a threat to their empire. They had assumed that Earth, like so many other worlds, would fall quietly into their grasp. But now, with the knowledge of what the humans had accomplished, they realized that even their most powerful forces could be at risk if they underestimated the humans. And so, across the galaxy, the message began to spread: do not challenge humanity. It was a message born from fear. A fear that had spread like wildfire, consuming the minds of those who had once been confident in their superiority. The galaxy had just learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity, against all odds, had proven itself the most terrifying warrior species in the universe. And now, that fear was spreading, with far-reaching consequences that no one, not even the humans themselves, could have foreseen. The war was not over. It had only just begun. And now, humanity had to brace itself for what was to come, an uncertain future where the stakes were higher than ever before. The war had taken a toll on every corner of Earth. Cities lay in ruins, and the scars of battle were visible on the faces of every person who had survived the onslaught. Yet amid the destruction, something extraordinary was unfolding. The human race, battered and bruised, had found a new strength in the ashes of their world. The victory over the alien forces was only the beginning, and the realization of that truth sparked a fire in the hearts of every human still standing. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't just about fending off an invasion and defending Earth from extinction. No, the stakes had risen higher. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, and that fear was not something the human race was willing to let go of. There was something deeper at play now, something that resonated in the very soul of every human being: the need to stand, not just for Earth, but for every living thing within it. The victory had brought humanity together in ways that no one could have anticipated. Governments had collapsed, borders became irrelevant, and once divided nations were now working in unison to rebuild and fortify the planet. Human beings, often at odds with one another, had come together with a single focus: to never again allow their world to be taken from them. The world's leaders met in secret once again, aware of the danger that still loomed. Earth had proven its strength, but the galaxy was vast, and the unknown alien factions were still watching. The message was clear: humanity had to be prepared for the next battle. And there would be a next battle. Dr. Asha, the physicist who had developed the magnetic weapon that had turned the tide of the war, stood at the head of a team now working around the clock. The pulse that had taken down the alien ships was just the beginning. There were greater threats lurking beyond the stars, and Earth needed to be ready. No more waiting for someone else to save them. No more reliance on hope alone. Humanity would take its destiny into its own hands. "We cannot afford to sit idly by and wait for the next wave," Dr. Asha said in a rare public address. "We are more than survivors. We are fighters, and now we must evolve. We must build our defenses, not just to protect Earth but to show the galaxy that we are a force to be reckoned with." Her words resonated deeply with people all over the world. In a moment of true unity, the people of Earth began to see themselves as more than just a species fighting for survival. They had become a symbol of resilience. They had become a beacon of defiance against the cosmic powers that thought they could crush them. Within weeks, the human race had mobilized. What had been shattered in the wake of the alien invasion was now being rebuilt with an intensity that sent waves across the galaxy. Advanced weaponry that once existed only in the realm of science fiction became reality. Earth's scientists, engineers, and inventors worked together to create new technologies, using the knowledge they had gained from the alien force and their own brilliant minds. Humanity, ever adaptive, had learned not only from their own mistakes but from their enemies as well. But it wasn't just the technology that had changed. The human spirit had evolved in ways no one could have predicted. The fight for survival had sparked something in every person, a renewed belief in their own worth and in the strength that comes from unity. Each individual realized that they were a part of something far greater than themselves. They had a collective purpose now. No longer would they be passive bystanders in their own fate. Across the globe, humanity rallied together. The streets that had once been filled with confusion and fear were now filled with determination. Citizens of every country volunteered for the effort, taking on roles in the reconstruction of their world. The very earth that had once seemed fragile and vulnerable now felt like a home fortified by the unbreakable will of its people. Amid this revival, there was a sense of pride that began to spread. Humans, who had once been looked down upon as a primitive species, now held their heads high. Their fearlessness, their ingenuity, and their unyielding resolve had not only won a war, it had reshaped the way they viewed themselves and their place in the galaxy. But the alien races, those who had been watching from the shadows, were beginning to make their moves. The defeat of the invaders had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, but the true weight of the message had yet to be felt. The fear humanity had instilled was real, but it was not enough to deter the more ambitious and ruthless factions that had begun to consider Earth a threat. Far from Earth, in the heart of a distant star system, the most powerful alien empire began to discuss their next steps. Their leaders, though deeply rattled by humanity's unexpected resistance, were calculating. They knew that any attempt to directly confront Earth again would be met with fierce opposition. But they were not about to let this human uprising go unchecked. They would find a way to crush Earth's spirit before it could fully take root. Back on Earth, humanity prepared for what was to come. Dr. Asha's team had made remarkable strides in improving their defensive technology, but it was clear that they would need to be more than prepared, they would need to be ready for anything. The rest of the galaxy had witnessed the fear humans inspired, but now, Earth would face a test unlike any they had seen before. For humanity, the war was far from over. The galaxy's greatest powers, once too sure of their own dominance, were now calculating how best to eliminate the threat humanity posed. And this time, the stakes were higher. Humanity had not just earned the galaxy's fear, they had earned its respect. But in doing so, they had also painted a target on their backs. Now, more than ever, Earth had to be ready. The fight was just beginning, and humanity's resolve would be tested in ways they could not yet understand. But one thing was certain. Whatever the galaxy threw at them, humans would face it with the same spirit that had carried them through the first battle. They were no longer just a species on the edge of extinction. They were warriors, and their fight was far from over. As Earth prepared for the inevitable next wave of galactic opposition, something unexpected occurred, a development that would shape the course of the war and change humanity's future in ways they could never have anticipated. For weeks, tensions had been building. The galaxy's most powerful empires, still fearful of humanity's growing strength, had been formulating plans to deal with the threat Earth now represented. Humanity, for its part, had fortified itself, building stronger defenses and advancing its technology with the same resilience that had carried it through the initial invasion. The planet was bracing for war. Then, one morning, humanity received a message, a transmission from an unknown source. It was a signal from deep space, broadcast in a frequency that humans had never encountered before. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch, another random signal from the depths of space. But then the message was decoded, and the realization set in. It wasn't a random transmission. It was an invitation, an offer for an alliance. The message came from a race of beings known as the Kryleks, a species that had long been neutral in the ongoing struggles of the galaxy's great powers. The Kryleks were a mysterious race, reclusive and rarely seen by other civilizations. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had developed, and their intelligence was unmatched. Few in the galaxy even knew of their existence. But now, the Kryleks were extending a hand to Earth, offering an alliance. The leaders of humanity were at first skeptical. The Kryleks had remained neutral during the initial invasion. Why would they now suddenly offer their assistance? And what did they stand to gain by aligning themselves with a species that had just proven itself a threat to the galaxy? But Dr. Asha, the scientist who had developed the magnetic pulse weapon that had turned the tide of the war, saw something in the Kryleks' message that others didn't. She recognized their words not as a mere offer of help, but as a warning. The Kryleks had seen what humanity was capable of, how quickly humans could adapt and innovate under pressure. And they knew that if humanity was left to grow unchecked, the galaxy might never be the same again. After much deliberation, humanity accepted the Kryleks' offer, but under one condition: the alliance would be one of mutual respect. Humanity would not be a pawn in some galactic game of power. This would be a partnership built on trust, cooperation, and shared goals. The first meeting between the leaders of Earth and the Kryleks took place in a secluded, undisclosed location. Representatives from Earth's government, military leaders, and top scientists gathered with the Kryleks delegates. As the Kryleks entered the room, their presence was overwhelming. Their appearance was nothing like what humans had expected: tall, slender figures with shimmering skin that seemed to pulse with a faint glow. Their eyes were deep pools of wisdom and experience, and the air around them seemed to hum with power. The Kryleks spoke with calm authority, their words laced with both respect and a sense of quiet urgency. "We have watched you, humanity. We have seen your resilience, your ingenuity, your strength. What you have achieved in the face of overwhelming odds is something we had not predicted. But what you must understand is that the galaxy is a far more dangerous place than you realize. You are not simply a threat to the established order, you are a force that has the potential to alter the balance of power in ways that even the most powerful empires cannot ignore." Humanity's leaders listened intently as the Kryleks explained the precarious situation that lay ahead. The galaxy, they warned, was not just a place of vast civilizations. It was a place of deep, ancient power, and there were forces at play that had been dormant for millennia, forces that would not tolerate humanity's rise. The Kryleks were no strangers to galactic politics, and they knew that humanity's presence on the galactic stage would shake things up in ways that would lead to further conflict. The galaxy's more ruthless factions, those that had once viewed humanity as an insignificant species, were now eager to eliminate the threat before it could grow too powerful. The Kryleks, despite their advanced technology, could not stand alone against these forces. So, they came to Earth with an offer: humanity would join them in a shared effort to counter these threats, to protect not just Earth but the balance of the galaxy itself. The Kryleks would offer their knowledge and technology, helping humanity advance further than it could on its own. In return, humanity would lend its strength and creativity to the Kryleks' cause, becoming an equal partner in the fight against the galactic powers that sought to eliminate them. For humanity, this was an opportunity to rise even higher. The alliance with the Kryleks gave them access to technologies and knowledge that could propel them into the stars. But it also meant the stakes had been raised. No longer was Earth merely fighting to survive an alien invasion. Now, humanity was stepping onto a larger stage, a stage where their very existence was a threat to the established order of the galaxy. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Humans and Kryleks worked together to share technology, combine resources, and prepare for the inevitable conflicts that lay ahead. The Kryleks shared their understanding of interstellar warfare, teaching humans the art of advanced tactics and strategy. In return, humanity's ingenuity and adaptability breathed new life into the Kryleks' ancient technologies, making them more effective than ever. But as the alliance solidified, a new realization set in. The Kryleks, despite their immense power, were not infallible. They had their own enemies, factions within the galaxy that had been waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, with humanity on their side, those enemies would come. The battle lines were being drawn. What started as a struggle for survival on Earth had evolved into something far greater, a battle for the very future of the galaxy. Humanity, now an unexpected power in the cosmos, had become both the galaxy's greatest hope and its greatest fear. And in the face of this, humanity stood resolute. They had faced the unimaginable before, and they would do so again. This time, they would not stand alone. Together with the Kryleks, they would fight not just for Earth, but for their place in the stars. The war had only just begun, and humanity was ready to face whatever came next. In the deepest corners of space, the galaxy's great powers were watching, and they were afraid. The unexpected alliance between humanity and the Kryleks had shifted the balance of power. And as the first sparks of intergalactic war began to ignite, humanity's role as the galaxy's most fearsome warriors was about to be tested in ways they had never imagined.